This has been some of the most frequent in, obviously is the worldwide situation. We hope you're doing great and that pretty soon this will be over. Letting you know that Costa Rica right now, most fortunately, is the country that began, was the first country in Central America with the virus that has the lowest curve and the lowest mortality rate. These are some of the things for which we're very proud in Costa Rica, our social security. If you look at our previous webinar, Costa Rican facts, you'll understand many of these things are not a coincidence. Costa Rica has worked with this. And actually, would like to share with you information that you may have about the country itself. Would like to invite you to go to the Costa Rican Tourism Board website, ict.go.cr, and you will find there we have a link specifically for the virus information. As to the travel ban, now we're May 15th. That besides that, any information will be shared in that. And know that when the travel ban is over, anytime is a good time to travel into Costa Rica. So let us begin with our presentation. I'm going to turn off the camera, and again, 30 minutes will be on the PowerPoint, and then opening your questions and answers. Thank you very much. Okay. So why can Costa Rica be promoted as a year-round destination? It's a pleasure to share with you, and I'll be sharing from this angle with you. My name again is Michelle, and I've been working 30 years in the tourism industry as a tour guide, as a biologist and travel agent. So this is a reason for which I would like to share a little bit of this experience with you. Obviously, all by myself, this would be impossible. We have here in ProImagen the perfect combination. We believe that the key to success is unity and commitment in behalf public and private sector. In the private sector, we have in Costa Rica 93 members at ProImagen. This makes it really easy for you. You will have all in just one click. You would have access to hotels, travel agents, car rentals, tour operators, and domestic airlines. Um, we have noticed that it's becoming very complicated to retrieve information as more and more choices. But when you go back to the traditional, you find it's the safest and fastest way for you to have answers. And as we're talking about unity and commitment, we would love you to be a part of it, you to become a part of our group and share with us all the questions so you could have better sales in Costa Rica. More satisfied customers will be the result of this. Now, when we talk about this, some of the questions that you may have is, when do the turtles nest in Costa Rica? We get this very often. When is this rainy season? When is the best time to see animals? The best time to see orchids in bloom? When will we get to see more birds? And that's basically the reason for which we wanted to share this presentation with you. Write down any question. I'll be answering them, remember, at the end. These are some of the things that you may want to keep in mind. Costa Rica is a very small planet, 0.03% of it. And it is so small, it could be defined in just one word or a few words: diversity. Diversity could be biologically speaking, in terms of the topography of the country, hydrography of the country, or the climate of the country. All of these different diversities will be important for you to understand why we could be a year-round destination. Obviously, when we talk about Costa Rica, we are talking about this biological diversity. The fact that Costa Rica and the northern part of Panama, southern part of Nicaragua, were the last part of the continent to come out of the ocean, allowed us to be the bridge where some of the North American species found the southernmost point, like a puma, let's say, and some of the South American species found the northernmost point. There you have birds like the toucans, and therefore we have gathered all these species in just one spot, which is Costa Rica. It is 500,000 species of flora and fauna. If you take other areas, they might have more species, but they would not have the amount of individuals of every species per surface. This is the one important thing you want to keep in mind, that 500,000 species are in a country of 19,500 square miles. If you would do this to your country, imagine how many species you would have. This is what you want to keep in mind. Let's say, for instance, there are 20,000 species of butterflies in the world. 725 of them will be in North America. This is Mexico, US, and Canada. And Costa Rica, much, much smaller than all of this, has 1,251 species of butterflies, 8,000 species of moths. So just imagine this. We have more species than that whole northern part of the continent. In terms of plants, this is very important. We have 1,300 species of orchids. Let's say everyone likes orchids. I'm pretty sure of that. I'm sure a lot of you have tried having orchids in your house. Now, how many of you have been successful growing orchids? And if you have, how many species? You know, orchids are very difficult to take care of. They're not easily pleased. Somehow reminds me of my mother-in-law. So if we have the climatic diversity of hosting 1,300 species of orchids, just imagine the other plants we can host in Costa Rica. This is thanks to the climatic diversity we'll be talking about pretty soon. So obviously, with a higher number of species, we have higher chances of observation. This will be added into this question, when? Well, basically, with this large amount of animals or plants, you know that you can see them all year round because they have been adapted to the conditions we have in Costa Rica. In terms of the topography, this is very important. Costa Rica goes from sea level to 12,532 feet above the sea level. You might say there are other countries that have that, obviously, but not separated by 74 miles. Just 74 miles between the Pacific and the Caribbean. How is this relevant? The Caribbean side of Costa Rica is influenced by the northeastern trade winds, which are very humid. They will be going as far up as the tropic lines would allow it. Remember, they're not static as we learn in school. The planet has an inclination, and this inclination makes that line move from 30 degrees to 9 degrees. That means it's dynamic. Once the trade winds get to that line, they cannot go any further. They will be going into the Atlantic. Consider the trade winds like a sponge. They'll be soaked into the water, and then once it's saturated, thanks to this effect, I'm pretty sure you have heard of it, Coriolis, which is the reason for which water turns clockwise in one part of the planet and counterclockwise in the other one, will make this sponge, the trade winds, come back into the continent and release all the water that was accumulated on the Atlantic Ocean. As a result, the Caribbean coast has a higher rainfall for the country. But as it's released, that will be balanced, and they will find an obstacle, the back part of the mountain ranges. This you would only understand if you wash your car, if you make your dishes at home. You can try and hand dry the sponge as hard as you can, you will not be able to do it. There would always remain some water droplets into that sponge. Now the sponge will be lighter and will be able to go higher. As you go higher, the water and the temperature will be reduced. As they get to the summit, they will go into the Pacific current, which is warmer, which is higher. Okay? So this happens separated by only 74 miles. This is going to have a really high incidence in terms of the conditions you can find in between one place and the other. As I'm noticing over here, many people confuse us with an island. We have that question very often. How many Puerto Ricans live in Costa Rica? I would be pleased to ask their embassy about that. But we are not an island, we're a continental country. This topography has 183 volcanic origin mountains with 112 volcanic craters. Remember, we're very small, so ups and downs are a constant, allowing you to have different environments and with it, different climates, different things to be discovered. How is this related to my plan? Okay, simple. The Pacific coast, influenced by drier, warmer winds, is going to have what we call a seasonal behavior, unlike the Caribbean. This water-rich winds will be all year round, pretty much the same. Basically, the optimist will say that it could be sunny any day, and the pessimist will be say it could be rainy any day. However, we have to keep this in mind. It's a constant battle in between both sides of the country. So when it's drier on one side, it will be rainier on the other side. Planning with the professionals here at Proimagen will allow you to know when is this happening throughout the year. But again, this is a reality all throughout the year where you can sell. It's always going to be dry in one part and on the other side, higher chances of humidity. In terms of hydrography, we're going to have 6 feet of rainfall in the driest part. If I'm telling you that next year in your home countries, you're going to have 6 feet of rainfall, you think it's the end of the world. Probably you're going to start looking up on the internet for Noah's Ark. But it's just the driest part of Costa Rica. Imagine that. It's 28 feet in the rainiest part of Costa Rica. You're thinking about a country that is dry, where we're not a desert. That's why we're so filled with life. That's why we have so much wildlife in Costa Rica, so many forests, right? We have 43 large rivers in Costa Rica. This will be watered by hundreds of tributaries. And I'm sure this is not what you were expecting to hear because you want to be warm and not cold. Let me share just a little experience that happened last year when we were in Canada. We were visiting. We were 3 days in Toronto, and we wanted to walk around. And people were like, "Please don't go out. It's raining." It's just few drops falling down. I said, "You have never been to Costa Rica to know what rain is like." And as we got out, we understood the reason for which they were telling us that it was pretty cold. In other countries, this let's go back here. The water could be really cold. In Costa Rica, water is never cold. Actually, when people go whitewater rafting, when people go in stand-up paddle, when people go in different activities, they don't have to wear the wetsuits because water is always warm. 78 degrees Fahrenheit, that's the temperature of the water. Imagine that. It almost feels like a sauna when you go into the ocean in Costa Rica. So definitely what you have to keep in mind is that it's not the same sensation, it's not the same feeling as when you would be in your countries. Let us just check a little detail over here. These technical issues. In just a second, we'll be back with you. can you see that, please? Someone confirm.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, so saying water is always warm in Costa Rica. It's never cold. That's a very positive thing
Yeah,
when you're visiting this country. Costa Rica definitely is a beautiful garden, has fertile land, has water, has sunlight, and it is just 8 to 11 degrees north of the equator. What did this mean? That we're going to have 12 hours of sunlight. I'm going to have to probably correct something that we have used in tourism for selling Costa Rica. 12 hours of sunlight means we have no season. And people have spoken about a dry season, about a rainy season. I studied in college and I knew summer, spring, winter, and fall. I never knew of anything called sunny and rainy, right? The fact again that we have 12 hours of sunlight, 22 minutes only between the shortest and the longest day. Imagine that's not a season. Let's also keep in mind that we are in the northern hemisphere as Canada. I had a friend yesterday sharing with me a picture. It was snowing, and this is very warm in Costa Rica right now. It couldn't be possible in the same season to have different climates. And the fact again is that we have no seasons at all. Okay, we have climatic regions, we have life zones in Costa Rica, we have 83 microclimates. And that's important for you to know. It's going to be like this all year round as there are no seasonal changes in Costa Rica. In terms of climate, and this is maybe complicated for you, but I'd just like you to keep in mind this. The tropical dry forest, which is that area where we have 6 feet of rainfall, is going to be like this for 6 months. Very dry. It's going to be difficult to relate it then to a place where it could actually rain. And the humidity in it, 20 to 40%. The tropical humid forest, remember, this is where it could be sunny or rainy any day. It's going to have a 77 to 88% of humidity. That means that it's pretty constant all throughout the year, right? Usually you relate humidity to rainfall. It doesn't necessarily have to be raining to be humid. It talks about the capacity of the forest to hold that within them and be able to survive throughout the year, right? You would never understand by the excess, just by the deficits. And that's why the cloud forest, which is the coolest part of the country in terms of forest, is going to have 100% of humidity. But you would think that humidity is always hot. Well, these are some of the things that we have to adapt when you visit Costa Rica. It is a different feeling from what you have back home. And only if you witness it, only if you live it, you would understand it. But again, let's move on because probably this is what you've been expected. My goal is to see the largest numbers of animals. 923 species of birds in Costa Rica. Uh, Imagine that if you take Costa Rica, again, this very small country, it has more species than the US and Canada together. Actually, if you go from Mexico all the way down to South America, what we call the neotropics, there are 3,000 species of birds. Costa Rica has 922 of them. Has more bird species than the US and Canada has more bird species than all the European continent. Costa Rica has, like for instance, what we call endemic bird areas that are very important. You would have here the Central American Caribbean Slope, the South Central American Pacific Slope, and Costa Rica Panama Highlands. These are the areas where you find a lot of birds that will only be in the specific areas. That means that if you have birding clients, they will be really interested in having lifers here in Costa Rica. Now, if you talk about mammals, 223 species of mammals, 110 of them are bats. Not very liked in these recent days, but they are very important because these bats means that they're pollinating, they're distributing the fruits. They have important insect control as well. If you don't like mosquitoes, you should be loving bats. Then we have very interesting mammals in Costa Rica, like the tapir, like the jaguar, like the puma, the ocelot. We have a lot of these animals that people just dream about seeing, and it is an actual possibility when you come to Costa Rica. As you would easily understand, the animals don't want to see humans. Some of the things that we've been seeing in the recent videos. Mhm. Just wait a second and you'll see how this is related. Let's say to the whales, which are the most common mammal people want to see when they come to the oceans of Costa Rica. We have two families because of this movement of the tropics that we were talking about. A North American family and a South American family. The North American will be coming from December to April. Not really large numbers, but they're visible. The main observation period is August to October, and this is in the South Pacific, South American families. The thing about these animals is that they'll be giving birth over here, and the mamas will have to take care of the babies. In these waters that are deep but not as deep, in the deepest waters is where the alpha males are waiting for the mamas and the babies. They would try to kill the babies to force the females to get in heat again. That's why they stay a large amount of time close to the coast in Costa Rica and eases the observation of the humpback whales. We have a carnival here in Costa Rica. We have a period where these activities are organized. So you want to keep this in mind. The sea turtles, definitely we have to divide them in the two different coasts. They're very, very different. The Pacific has very specific areas that would be crowded, but they're very isolated one from each other. The Caribbean side, as we'll see, is larger, so it's a wider distribution for the species. The olive ridley turtle will be found from June to December. Mhm. This will be most of all on the North Pacific of Costa Rica. The hawksbill, now has a wider distribution and it's from July to October. The leatherback exclusively on the North Pacific, October to March. And the black turtle, which is considered to be the Pacific relative of the green turtle, that's April to October. If you see this, basically all throughout the year, you will be able to see somewhere, somehow, one of the species. Consider that the nesting is about a 2 months window and then an additional 2 months for the hatchling. Okay. On the Caribbean side, we have the leatherback. This is the largest living species, 10 feet of length, the world's record. It's held in the Wales Museum in England, weighted a ton. Imagine that is a monster. And you will find that on the South Caribbean, where the slope has a gentle kind of ascension, not very deep canals, allowing them to be pushed by the currents out of the ocean. March to April. This is the most seriously endangered species. Very few spots in the world remain. Costa Rica is the second most important for the observation of these nestings. You should keep that in mind. Then the loggerhead, we have from July to October. She's most likely to the South Caribbean as well. We have the hawksbill, March to October. That will be north of the Caribbean, and the green turtle, July to October. As we said on the Pacific side, they have all year round some kind of activity taking place. As soon as the leatherback is done on the Pacific, you'll be jumping to the Caribbean side. So they're just amazing. That allows you to see all throughout the year something happening with the sea turtles in Costa Rica. But about birds, well, January and April will be good months to see most of all the residents, but we have also migratories that will be increasing the numbers in Costa Rica. However, if you consider the fact that a higher number of visitors means a higher stress for them, then your chances of seeing the animals as well will be reduced. So in the lower visitation, you would increase the chances of seeing the animals. And that's why, because they're residents, we could guarantee that all throughout the year we'll be able to show animals, and in a much more private environment, relax with the animals as well, having passed that peak of high tourism season. The reasons, we have a greater production of food, stable climate, little wind. That's very important because these northeastern trade winds, November and December and May, will be higher. Another thing you want to keep in mind in terms of the birds and animal, wildlife in general, is that higher the elevation, higher the endemism. So you're going to have fewer species, but what I've mentioned before, lifers, things that you would only found here in these areas that we mentioned, the endemic birding areas, or not as common. Say if you go to a cloud forest, the temperatures are lower and you have a higher percent of humidity, probably people wouldn't be thinking about seeing the parakeets. We have the sulfur winged parakeet. You wouldn't think about seeing toucans, and we have the emerald toucans. Those are animals that have adapted and are endemic specific to this kind of environment. So this is really important, and themselves are going to have migrations, but locally looking for that food supply. That's when you need a good birding guide. Costa Rica has been known for this because we have not just the birds, we have the birding facilities, the hotels, the trails, we have birding knowledge, we have the guides, and definitely this will help you having the best results when in this country. We have then clouds, as I was mentioned, of the migrant birds, most of all the raptors that come in Costa Rica. We have one spot specifically on the South Caribbean called Kikoldi, where the animals would be, these raptors, excuse me, will be seen up to 4 million sometimes individuals can be seen over the sky. These are literally clouds. And the reason for which they need to migrate is basically feeding patterns, nesting patterns, right? It's always an argument about where do they live? Do they live in North America, or do they live here? They move to North America. Some of the species come from South America. Basically, keep in mind, they are going to have a different pattern because they have a different need when they come over here. Even in the feathers, some of the birds that we share, take spotted sandpiper, it's going to have a different feather pattern when they're in Costa Rica than in North America. So it's always important that we point this to their clients. So in order to finish, because we don't have much time left, here we have a year-round stable temperature. We have year-round bundles of animals. We have year-round open attractions. This is important. When you go to some countries, it's going to be a seasonal opening. Okay? Take the skiing resorts. It's going to be seasonal. Some of the places for diving, there will be seasonal as well. Costa Rica, having that stability we talked about, allows us to have attractions open all year round. It's never cold. Obviously, I'm saying only if you're looking for a cool down. And this is also year round in the cloud forests. As we get into 12:30 now, as I promised, 30 minutes, we'll be done. We'll be going to the questions. However, please take a look at the next webinars we're going to have with the expert Ronald Calvo. We're going to have on May the 6th, Costa Rica for adventures. Costa Rica is in the top 10 destinations worldwide for adventure products. We're going to have the specialist, Ronald, sharing this with you. Please don't miss it. And destinations of the beaten path in Costa Rica. The expert Ronald Calvo, he'll be telling you about new places where you can have sales. Remember, these webinars will be helping you to create a new strategy, new ways to sell, new ideas for your clients, refreshing. And this webinar is going to be excellent for these purposes, destinations of the bidden pad. So thank you very much. And again, please don't hesitate to contact. We'd love to hear more from you. We know, unfortunately, that beyond this point, but please don't hesitate to share if you have any further questions. Most of all, what we said at the very beginning, we'd love to have unity between you and us, with all our 93 members to help you in any ways possible. Okay, so let's take a look at some of your questions. If anyone has questions, please have this 5-10 minutes. We're waiting for anyone's questions. Was everyone able to see the PowerPoint presentation? You could open your microphones right now if you need a question. Thank you very much, Henry.
What is the best time to go to Costa Rica?
Thank you very much, Ignacio. Pretty much what we have spoken the last 30 minutes. Anytime is a good time in Costa Rica. It all depends on your client and your client's knowledge, right? How much do you know your client? What is he looking for? Because if he's looking for wildlife, that could be anytime. If he's looking for adventure, that could be anytime. If he's looking for friendly people, that could be anytime. If he's looking for a specific animal, then that's when you need to be in contact with us, and we'll be more than pleased to help you answer that question. But in terms of observation, what Costa Rica is, anytime is a good time. Thank you, Ignacio.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hi, this is Pindi here. What is a website?
For the Costa Rican Tourism Board?
Yes, that's correct.
ict.go, like government, go.cr as Costa Rica.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Here, the next webinars would be adventures, and then we're going to have the other webinar, which will be Costa Rica off the beaten path. Those will be the next subjects we'll have, and we're open. If you have any other ideas, we'll be more than pleased. Just be in contact with us at Pro Imagen, and what we're looking forward is to have a better relation, is to help anyone solve problems you might have in selling. We are here to help you. Just as we help you, we help the country itself. Remember what we're talking about: sustainable country. We're helping a lot of families. We're helping a lot of projects to help with the Costa Rican preservation, nature, and culture. So thank you very much for being a part of this group. We'd have time for another question if you have. I would more than pleased. Someone was talking that was really low. I couldn't hear it. If not, we'd like to thank you very much on behalf of the Costa Rican Tourism Board, of the group Pro Imagen, and personally here from Michelle Aranda in Costa Rica. We'll be waiting for you, arms wide open. Thank you very much, Peggy. Thank you, Amy, for your comments. And hoping you have enjoyed this. You will be able to see this on YouTube video later, so you can look at all the details we have shared. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. See the turtles. How long does it last? Okay, the tours to see the turtles. Okay, when you go and see a turtle in Costa Rica, it's very regulated. It's not like other countries where you can go by yourselves. You'd all be escorted by a guide and a guard that would be waiting for the best moment for you to approach a turtle. This is when the turtle has begun the egg chamber. She will be doing first a chamber for herself, her body, allowing the gravity to help her laying the eggs. Um, Once she starts digging the egg chamber, a small group will approach in the back, and you will be able to see how that finishes, how the eggs fall into the egg chamber, how she covers, and a part of it going back to the ocean. A full process is 90 minutes, but only about half of it will be visible for customers because we want to reduce the amount of turtles that could be lost. One or two of every thousand that are born will be getting to the adult age without the infants of human beings. So obviously, we want to maximize the amount of eggs, the success on the nesting process. So basically, a tour uh, takes 2 hours, but it's the time for you to get to the observation place, for you to see that part that I mentioned, and then going back to your hotels. It is limited. It is my pleasure. We're here to help you. Okay. Does anyone else have a question? Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to share with you. Hope to see you in the near future. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Thanks, Anna. Stay well, stay safe.